very delightful morning. It's Friday edition, and I'm excited to be with you this morning. Of course, some persons are already throwing their fingers in the air in celebration. The word "thank God" is Friday echoed just as they step out of their bed, knowing full well that by the end of today, they will have to take a rest from the daily, weekly hustle of sometimes waking up pretty much early in the morning, just to make sure you get to work on time, get to meet up with a lineup of activities and engagement that you have for the day. But of course, this is Rise and Shine coming to you live from here, the very beautiful capital city of Akwa Ibom State, not without its own challenges, by the way. But of course, as always, we'll be here talking Nigeria, taking you around the latest happenings and development while we keep you company as you go about your morning responsibilities. My name is Francis Oyima Adet. And as always, we'll also encourage you to join us on our socials, all of which Spectrum TV, and then of course spectrumtv.live, and then you can be part of our conversations. And talking Nigeria this morning, with all of the tensions in the air, Nigeria's Independence Day celebration slated for 1st of October, the speculation that surfaces on the social media, and of course that was further debunked by the federal government, where it was alleged that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu was going to make some announcement bordering on the salary wager as part of announcement to help cushion the effect of fuel subsidy and of course prevent the NLC-TUC and the planned nationwide strike, which has been slated or scheduled for to begin from 3rd of October. Of course, different issues still springing up here and there. Back in Akwa Ibom State as well, we've had some, latest development worth mentioning and bringing to your notice. Of course, we're going to take you around all of those things, not forgetting that on New Delhi Spotlight, we'll also take you around the front pages of national dailies, stories making it to the front pages of national dailies. And of course, being the usual tradition, we'll start this morning with our very first flash news, where the Nigerian military has intercepted 388 million stolen crude oil and of course have arrested 22. Now, the military high command said yesterday that troops on operation in the Niger Delta area foiled the theft of crude oil to the tune of 388,469,650 naira and arrested 22 suspected oil thieves in the process. Of course, this is according to the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Buba Edward, who disclosed this in Abuja while briefing journalists on the activities of the military in the last 1 week. Edward said troops in the Niger Delta destroyed 38 dugout pits, 21 boats, 57 storage tanks, and of course 3 tapping horses, 4 drum receivers, 89 cooking ovens, 6 pumping machines, 3 outboard engines, and 34 illegal refining sites. Of course, the troop also recovered 696,250 liters of stolen crude oil, 54,400 liters of illegally refined agro, and 1,200 liters of premium motor spirit. Giving an update on the counter-insurgency fight, the military spokesperson also said a total of 191 terrorists were killed, while 184 were arrested in the last 1 week. Now, we have to give a pause here and commend the Nigerian military for a job well done. For those of us who have been, for you rather, who has always been here with us on Rise and Shine, you would know the conversations we've been pushing, especially when we get to hear day in, day out, the figures being rolled out by the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian military, of the millions, the thousands, the hundreds of, liters of premium motor spirit illegally refined or other, products within the petroleum sector that is illegally refined. And we are told the army intercepted and then, of course, burned it. The conversations we've always championed on Rise and Shine is, can't we get to a point where the army does not make the excuse that gives credence to what many have postulated especially during the electioneering period. We saw the Labour Party presidential candidate stating obviously that for oil theft to actually happen in Nigeria, it would need a high-powered deliberation and collaboration between top cadres of rank and files within the military and the government, people within the corridors of power, because you're talking about the high sea, you're talking about territorial sovereignty, you're talking about people who are manning those territorial sovereignty or protecting it. And then the Nigerian Navy comes into play, the Nigerian military comes into play, the Nigerian Air Force comes into play. So when the Nigerian Armed Forces intercept in court stolen crude oil or vessels laden with stolen crude oil in court, and then go ahead to bomb the vessel, destroying the crude oil, different kinds of conversations spills out. First, you're causing harm and damage to the aquatic life of that environment. You're polluting the environment. Of course, you're also taking away livelihood from Nigerians within that area who might be dependent on fishing and aquatic life to survive or to make daily ends meet. And then, of course, moving away from that, in a time where experts have said the climate is no longer just hot, it is boiling, which means there is an urgent need for all the Committee of Nations and states to take proactive measures to be a lot more intentional and deliberate in protecting the environment. But we see a military destroying fuel, burning it down, bumping it, and all of those negative aftermath effect goes down to the environment, goes down into the lives of the people. It's the first time to see that the military has actually just not, go ahead to bomb but confiscate. This is the conversations we've been driving, because it will be a lot more beneficial to the Nigerian government, to the Nigerian people, when we intercept crude oil, when we intercept stolen crude oil, illegally refined crude oil, and then of course we return this to the coffers of government while taking into custody the people who have been caught being involved in the stealing of these natural collective natural resources. So it's kudos to the Nigerian military for a job well done. 22 persons arrested. We do like to see how the investigation is going to span out and who is going to go in for it. Of course, also talking about terrorism and other related issues. We know that since there is new helmsman, the Nigerian military came on board, they have been talking tough about making sure that Nigerians are in safer, serene environment. Of course, 100 plus insurgents destroyed, of course, another 100 plus arrested. That shows in just 1 week that the Nigerian military is further advancing its onslaught against non-state actors. Of course, the military said on September 21st, 2023, troops in conjunction with sister agencies personnel raided terrorist hideouts in Tafa and Suleja local government area of Niger State. Of course, during that operation, troops arrested 2 high-profile ISWAP terrorists. Also, September 20, 2023, troops on patrol raided criminal hideouts in AMAC of FCT. And of course, as a result of that operation, 51 suspects were arrested. Of course, 3 vehicles impounded for various offenses. Now, all of this just goes to show that within the course of 1 week, the Nigerian military has been able to achieve this greater feat. Now, it raises another question. How much of this can be sustained? Also looking at the fact that 91 kidnapped victims were, rescued within that time frame. 104 Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists and their families also surrendered to the troops across various theaters of operation. Now, these are all great feats, like I said earlier on, but then there are lots of concerns the Nigerians would have, particularly with the repentant, or the non-state actors, the terrorist members who have surrendered. We've seen in this country scenario where the federal government, the different state government, organize events to reintegrate in court repentant terrorists or repentant insurgent members into the society. And of course, some of them have even been alleged to be recruited into the Nigerian army. Hence the reason why many have said the recent spate of ambush on the Nigerian security forces might not be unconnected with the fact that we've had non-state actors being conscripted into the military, and so now they have access to intels beforehand, and so are able to smuggle those intel out to their peers in the jungle, who would now use it, to plan very well calculated ambush attack on members of the Nigerian armed forces. But of course, Nigerians are also asking, if we are to get to the point where we look at it, reintegrating these people who have surrendered, we should not, as a government, forget that sometimes once a terrorist, always a terrorist. We are not ruling out the fact that as Nigerians, that there is a room for one to actually say, you know what, I have done enough of evil to my fatherland, to my brothers and sisters, and I want to turn a new leaf. And then, of course, go ahead to, match those declarations, those realizations with actions capable of turning things around. But of course, we also not have to forget, as security experts have warned, that some of the so-called repentant, terrorists are not really repentant, but are rather looking for guys to gain access into places that ordinarily before now they would not have. And then, of course, use that to further advance the causes they had stood for, and had killed and maimed and kidnapped and perpetrated all kinds of vices and criminal activities against innocent Nigerians. And so as we celebrate the efforts and the gains made by the Nigerian military in the last 1 week, it is also very critical that the Nigerian military does not lose sight of the fact that, yes, this is just insignificant compared to what Nigerians are suffering, compared to the expectations of Nigerians. Of course, we're also looking at the fact that if we are to get to a point where insecurity is completely wiped out, the Nigerian military and the armed forces need to do a lot more in building trust, in building confidence, in ensuring that people who come forward with information about criminal activities are not exposed to further problems. Of course, moving away from that to our second flash story this morning, we see that the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, has said, and I quote, "Your sacrifice won't be in vain." Now, the Vice President said President Bola Tinubu's administration is committed to building a country where economic independence of each citizen is guaranteed. Vice President Shettima assured Nigerians that the sacrifices will not be in vain. And of course, he said the promises made by Ahmed Bola Tinubu during the campaign period will be fulfilled. This is according to a statement by his media aide to the Vice President, Stanley Nwocha. Shettima made the remarks yesterday at a public lecture to commemorate Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary at the State House Banquet Hall, Abuja. He said President Bola Tinubu's administration is committed and will ensure that economic independence of each and every one of the millions of Nigerians, over 2 million plus Nigerians, 200 million plus Nigerians, beg your pardon, will be guaranteed. Of course, these are conversations. Just let us give audio to the Vice President's speech, and then we'll come back to dwell on this conversation.
Our history, like that of every nation, isn't just a record of surviving attacks on our sovereign integrity and social welfare. Our history underscores the commonality of our shared humanity. The most recent memory, the COVID-19 pandemic, for instance, brought this starkly to the fore. The tragedy reminded us that viruses do not discriminate based on ethnicity or religion, and that our strength as a nation is driven by our collective faith in the ideal that define us and the moral character of our leaders. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I love Nigeria. I believe in the Nigeria project. Not because of my vested interests. I am 57 years old. As per the UNDP, the average age of a Borno man is 47. So I'm well past my prime. Certainly not because of my family. I have only a wife and 3 kids. I believe in Nigeria because if Nigeria works, the black man works. The last election was probably one of the most divisive elections in the contemporary annals of Nigerian history. Ethno-religious and regional fault lines were deliberately manipulated for political ends. But it is pertinent to mention, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that the most northern of northern states is Sokoto. The Nigerian candidate lost by a few thousand votes to the regional candidate in Sokoto. The most Christian of northern states is Benue. Benue is 90% Christian. And the Nigerian candidate defeated the religious candidate in Benue State, courtesy of the Prince of Wanune, the mercurial George Akume and his team. The most southern of southern states, the most southern of south-south states is Rivers. Again, the Nigerian candidate defeated the religious candidate in Rivers State, courtesy of the enigmatic, mercurial Nyesom Ezenwo Wike. He's unavoidably absent. He had to go around to attend to some functions. And the Nigerian political climate is populated by careful snails who do not want to upset the apple cart. In the First and Second Republics, we have the Adegoke Adelabus, the Bosari Adelakuns, the Kingsley Mbadwes, the Sambakwes, the Abubakar Rimis, the Saboba Kinzuos, the Aminu Kanos, the Abdulkadir Balarabe Musas, the Bala Usmans. But now, the most colorful character is probably Nyesom Wike. Unfortunately, his coming to Abuja has robbed out of his theatrics. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the future of a great nation is not determined by the occurrence of a socio-economic challenge. The future of every nation rests on the intention, sincerity, and innovative ideas of its leaders and their commitment to implementing them. This is why President Bola Tinubu's 8-point agenda remains an oasis in a scorching sun. We cannot renew the hope of the nation unless we deliver on our promise to drive food security and eradicate poverty. We cannot foster economic growth and nurture job creation unless we facilitate access to capital, enhance national security, and optimize the business environment for our enterprises. We are going to uphold the rule of law and fight corruption to design the Nigeria of our dream. We can't achieve any of these unless each citizen remains a strategic partner in pursuit of our ultimate national interests. At 63, we recognize that what has sustained us and propelled us forward is our collective belief that overcoming the challenges we have inherited necessitates sacrifices, especially from us, the leaders. We are driven by the realization that these sacrifices are not for naught. They are investments in a brighter future, investments that will redeem the fortune of our great generation and guarantee the well-being of generations to come. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the present administration also recognizes that the sacrifices made by each Nigerian will never be in vain. Such solidarity with our economic revival strategy, from the bustling streets of Lagos to the serene landscape of Enugu, has inspired our focus on diverse sectors, from agriculture to digital technology, from healthcare to education. We knew from the starting point of this race to serve the people that the track will not be without its holes and thorns. We knew that challenges will arise and obstacles will test our resolve. But as our history has shown, Nigerians are too ambitious to be broken by a temporary setback. We are going to emerge from this phase of our reform stronger, each of us with renewed hope. As we honor the labor of our heroes past. As we reflect on the values and principles that have brought us this far, as we strive to excel in all that we do, and as we work together towards a future where opportunity knows no bounds, let's remember that our most potent weapon is the overriding resolve of the majority to choose unity over chaos and democracy over anarchy. Thank you and happy independence.
One thing that Vice President Kashim Shettima thus got right there, or has gotten right, is the fact that for this present administration to be able to deliver true dividends of democracy, deliver on its 8-point agenda, deliver its campaign promises, and of course take Nigeria from the current economic downturn, from the current insecurity plague, from the current power fluctuation, from the current, different multiple problems facing bedeviling Nigeria's collective growth and advancement. There must be a consistency, there must be the political will, and there must be a devotion, a commitment on the part of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to implement to the later in strict measures all of its plans for Nigeria. But beyond that, there must be that sincerity, transparency, accountability on the part of not just President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, not just Vice President Kashim Shettima, but all the ministers and appointees of government, members of the legislature, and people across different MDAs who have been entrusted with the responsibility to help champion the cause. Of course, Nigerians have not forgotten in a long time, will not forget until the end of this administration, that President Ahmed Bola Tinubu did actually give a marching order upon swearing in his ministers and appointees, giving 3 years marching order for Nigerians to be able to see the effect of all his administration has been able to put into the pathway of recovering Nigeria and repositioning the country in terms of economy, the health sector, the educational sector, solving the problem of poverty, and of course insecurity, amongst other issues that have been highlighted by the Renewed Hope agenda. And of course, as Nigeria moves to celebrate the 63rd anniversary, it's a time for sober reflection, a time for us to look back at the things that have been, happening in Nigeria, the things that have held us back from achieving our goals. Of course, Nigerians haven't forgotten that for these to actually happen, the people President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has described as the elite of the elites, who have been, milking the country dry, especially in the issue of fuel subsidy, will be holistically addressed. And of course, every other policy going forward will be implemented in strict ways. And there is also going to be that review on a daily basis periodically to ensure that government programs, government schemes, government projects are well executed. And there's a renewed hope on the part of Nigerians with the National Assembly kickstarting, the 10th National Assembly kickstarting with oversight functions of, monitoring projects, past projects that have been executed by past administration. But Nigerians expect that these oversight functions will also be introduced to projects that the federal government intends to start within this lifespan of this administration. Of course, these people will also be sincere in their assessment. I recall just yesterday, the Work Minister David Umahi said Nigerian roads that have been constructed, there is none that is going to be able to last out the span of 7 years. And of course, cautioning experts who have been entrusted with jobs and projects to stop milking the federal government dry and doing shabby jobs. But we do hope that these words of the president through the vice president is met with action, because Nigerians cannot wait. And the big question which has been posited by the vice president, and Nigerians will not regret the sacrifices that they have made, is one that only Nigerians can speak about, and that will come when we begin to take stocks and inventory of what President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration has been able to do or not do in line with what he promised Nigerians. But moving away from that to the next flash story, we see that a dose that has been up, going back and forth between Governor Obaseki and his deputy Shaibu Of course, we see that the Edo State Governor, Godwin Obaseki, has accepted a public apology made by his deputy, Comrade Philip Shaibu, noting that as a person of faith, he was under obligation to accept the apology. Now, in a later title, a reply to a public apology by the Edo State Deputy Governor, Philip Shaibu, the governor said, in good faith, he trusts that the public apology as expressed by Shaibu is genuine and followed by contrite steps to improve his conflict resolution skills. The later I read and I have noted the public apology made by the Deputy Governor of Edo State, His Excellency Comrade Philip Shaibu. His apology followed an aberrant behavior that contradicts what the people of Edo State stand for. To name a few, the Deputy Governor needlessly filed unfounded petitions in the Nigerian court, restraining me, the State House of Assembly, and security agencies from a non-existential impeachment process, followed by repeated braces of protocol, unwarranted and unprovoked attacks in the media on my person and the state government, the media frenzy as a result of the above and more provided an impression of crisis that has been precarious and distasteful to Edo people in the state and across the world. Although these unwarranted provocations cause me severe personal discomfort as a person of faith, I am under obligation to accept this apology because, as they say, to err is human, to forgive is divine. Obaseki further noted that in good faith, of course, in good faith that he has accepted the apology. But of course, it is very important for us to recall that the deputy governor had, apologized to the governor of Edo State Thursday last week, precisely on the 21st of September. So if you calculate from 21st of September to today, 29, it's about a week and a day since that apology was given. Now, I'd like to take what he said. He said, I use this medium in the public apology he posted to appeal to Mr. Governor. If there is anything that I don't know that I have done, please forgive me so that we can develop our state together. We have just 1 year to go. We have been the envy of the entire country. So, Mr. Governor, if there is anything you feel that I have done, please, I am sorry. I need us to work together to finish well and strong. Of course, when asked if he had resumed at his new office, Shaibu said, we have resumed, but there is still a lot of work to be done there. Of course, he said he took a personal vow to support the governor, and of course, as a Catholic, he is here to make good on that promise, a vow to serve the people of Edo State. He also went further to say he was actually missing the governor, and the questions surrounding that. Some people say this is a political statement on the part of Shaibu. Others say this is actually someone who is trying to find a way to remedy whatever misunderstanding must have existed between him and the Edo State governor. Now, there have been a lot of conversations around issues like this where we see that local state governors and their deputies are almost like, the deputies are almost like they have absolutely nothing to do with governors, and so they just exist to be used at the whims and caprices of the governor. But there have also been conversations about changing that status quo and making the rule or the office of the the deputy governors to be enshrined in the constitutions with well read out, well map out roles, functions, and duties, so that we do not have them operating in court, as most of them would even refer to themselves as spare tires, in the hands of the governors. Remember, the spare tires are almost useless until there is a breakdown in the main tire. So when there is no breakdown in the main tire, in this context being the governor, that means the spare tire remains dumped in the boot, which of course is not in the interest of anybody. So Nigerians are hoping with the new charting, of course, we'll get to see an update in the Nigerian constitution, which of course can only be made possible by our legislature, but at the state and national assembly, to ensure that the deputy governors are further given constitutional backing to actually carry out their role. But one thing is very eminent in this is that the reconciliation between the Edo State governor and his deputy will definitely bring about the much desired, the long awaited, growth and development, because when two elephants are fighting, it is definitely the grass that is suffering. And of course, like the governor has said, all of the media razzmatazz, all of the media trends between the Edo State governor and his deputy have been putting Edo State in bad light. And we do hope that this is the last of such. Of course, moving away to a developing story this morning, we see that the Attorney General of the Federation has asked the organized labor to respect court order. Now, this is another twist that Nigerians are not finding it funny. Recall that since the announcement of the era of fuel subsidies governed by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, there's been a back and forth. And the first time the NLC went on nationwide protests, we saw the federal government coming out to muzzle, speaking about an existing court order restraining the NLC, TUC, labor unions in Nigeria from embarking on any protests whatsoever. Of course, with that, we saw the NLC and the TUC refusing to meet with the leadership of the federal government after the nationwide protest until the intervention of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu led to the federal government withdrawing the suit as demanded by the NLC. And then we saw the meeting with the president and the labor unions. And then, of course, the short withdrawal of strike action that was announced by the NLC. Shortly after that, we saw the allegations coming from the NLC that the federal government had not met with the demands and, of course, were shying away from negotiations oftentimes. And that led again to the 2 days warning strike backed upon by NLC. Of course, TUC was evidently absent as they had a last meeting with the Minister of Labor, Lalong. Of course, shortly after that, I think 2 weeks back, they came out to say that the agreement they had reached with Lalong has not been implemented, and they further gave an extension of 1 week. Now, with the expiration of the 21 days ultimatum given by the NLC to the federal government to address the concerns and issues about the fuel subsidy and its attendant economic hardship on the lives of Nigerians, the NLC and the TUC have issued a joint statement that effective October 3rd, we're going to have a nationwide lockdown of all sectors of Nigerian economy. Now, economic experts have said Nigeria cannot afford another nationwide lockdown. We cannot afford another industrial action that will further cripple the economy. But that, of course, is dependent on the body language, is dependent on the willpower of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. And at this point, the question is, with the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi bringing up this issue of court order again, what is the possibility of the NLC even shelving the planned strike? Because they are within the rights. Another concern Nigerians are raising, why does the federal government always head back to using the instrumentality of the state or the court to try and muzzle the labor unions? It is evidently clear that at this point, the economy is going down. Nigerians are suffering. The so-called palliative that has been released by the federal government is in a mess. People are getting 2 cups of rice. How long can 2 cups of rice take one individual? Talk more of a family. So when the palliative that has been given by the federal government has failed woefully, of course, we are not forgetting in a hurry that the labor unions, the NLC, the TUC, civil society organizations have said these palliatives should not have been released to the state government. But of course, should we also blame just the state government? In some states, we have seen how the state government took time to put in place different committees to help in the distribution of the palliative, getting down to the community level. But at the community level, you still see people who are saddled with the responsibility of leadership not being able to be sincere, transparent, fair, and just in the distribution of the palliative, which goes back to what Nigerians had said when the issue of palliative started with the 8,000 transfer. And of course, later, the president asked for a review, and Nigerians had technocrats across board writing to the president. I know we had the likes of architect Ezekiel Njaitu, the gubernatorial candidate in the just concluded elections in Akwa Ibom State, amongst others in Nigeria, writing to the president for positing solutions and possible ways that the federal government can actually go about providing sustainable palliative that can change the livelihood of Nigerians. But we haven't seen that coming. Well, the eyes of the Nigerian people are on the federal government, and the expectations are that the Ahmed Bola Tinubu's administration will be able to look past, using the instrumentality of the court to try and muzzle the NLC and the TUC, so that we get to a point where, all of the people, all of the concerns of Nigerians is being given value, is being given word. And Ahmed Bola Tinubu speaks. As he speaks on the October 1st, Nigerians expect that his speech is going to bring solution to the crisis within the Nigerian society. But of course, we move away from that to another developing story. We see that the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has told the U.S. court to reject Tinubu's objection on order for CSU to release academic records. Recall that Tinubu had the records of Tinubu had been directed by the U.S. court to be given to the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party when the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois in Chicago, of course, gave that verdict. Shortly after that, we saw the president's legal team appealing, and of course, now we're seeing Atiku Abubakar further appealing for the president's appeal to be, thrown out. And Nigerians have asked questions: what is the feud? What is the challenge? What is the crisis? And what are the concerns between the president, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, refusing or consistently appealing that his academic records should not be released? What is the president trying to hide? On the other hand, many have said maybe it's time for us to put an end to the different court cases, which, of course, the judiciary have come out to say is hampering other cases that should have been attended to. But of course, this is a development that we have not seen the last of it, because the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party is insisting to get the academic records. Many have said this is not going to end anytime soon, but we'll have to wait and see how this is going to spiral out within the context of the court within and outside the shores of Nigeria. But shortly before we head out, we'll come down to a very own Akwa Ibom state. Of course, we see that Governor Pastor Umoino has won the case so far against the APC candidate, talking about Akanodofia. And of course, you're also looking at architect Njaitik. Let's just take directly say that Udofia also accused, Governor Pastor Umoino has won in the magistrate court. Hence, of course, say the case filed against Governor Pastor Umoino lacks merit, and of course, the governor stands in. Now, the governorship election petitions tribunal sitting in New York, Akwa Ibom State, has dismissed a petition brought by the candidate of the All Progressive Congress, APC, and the state, talking about Akanimo Udofia, challenging the election of Pastor Umoino of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, as the winner of the March 18 poll. Now, Udofia saw the disqualification of Pastor Umoino's election on the grounds that he presented forged documents to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and also did not score the highest number of valid votes in the March 18, 2023 governorship election. Now, Udofia also accused the second respondent of being convicted by an Abuja magistrate court, hence not qualified to be filled for election. But in favor of Governor Umoino, the second respondent, the tribunal, in its unanimous decision, ruled that the allegation of substantial non-compliance with the electoral law in the conduct of the elections were not sufficiently proven by the petitioners in their case. Of course, the Justice Adekunle Adeleye-led panel also ruled that the magistrate court, in its judgment, nullified its earlier conviction of Pastor Umoino, and that once a judgment is nullified, it ceases to exist. On the issue of the qualification of the second respondent, the tribunal maintained that the Supreme Court had already determined that Pastor Eno was the authentic owner of the West African Examination Council WAEC certificate that he submitted to INEC. Of course, the lead judgment, read by Justice Kadi Usman Sikudu, also held that the petitioners, having alleged that Pastor Eno was not the owner of the certificate he submitted to the first respondent INEC, did not produce any other person as the authentic owner of the said 1981 WIEC certificate. The tribunal also expunged the evidence tendered by the petitioner's subpoenaed witness, an acclaimed Interpol officer who came to tender a report on the second respondent's WIEC result. Of course, on the petition allegation that the PDP made use of public office holders such as one Uwem Ekanem as a collation agent in Ikorobasi local government area, the tribunal ruled that Uwem Ekanem's membership of the board of Ibom Power Company cannot be classified as political office, and that a party agent's membership of a company's board was not sufficient reasons for a candidate to be disqualified. The tribunal ruled that a Kanimo Odofia's petition lacked merit as he was not able to establish one polling unit in which there was non-compliance with the electoral law in the March 18 governorship election. Of course, those are different issues coming out from the Akwa Ibom State election, governorship election petition tribunal. And just taking the reactions coming from Architect Nyaituk, of course, reaction from Architect Njaituk's campaign organization, a very lengthy one there, alleging that yes, they've held what has been said in the appeal court nullifying the elections, of course, giving favor to Governor Pastor Umoina. Well, we'll get to wait to see what the reactions from the APC and other political parties in Akwa Ibom State will be to the verdict of the court. But of course, this is where we're going to pause the conversation and head out to the news brief next, where Mary Joseph is standing by to take us through. And when we do come back, we'll be returning to dwell on more conversations. Just stay with us.
Heads of State and Government, Secretary General, distinguished delegates.
This was the Lagos Nigeria for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in still counting.
A very good morning and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. Our first report this morning is that Vice President Kashim Shettima has assured Nigerians that their sacrifices will not be in vain, saying the promises made by the Tinubu administration will be fulfilled. According to a statement by a media aide to the Vice President, Stanley Wocha, Shettima made the remarks at a public lecture to commemorate Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary at the State-held Banquet Hall, Abuja. He said President Bola Tinubu's administration is committed to building a country where the economic independence of each citizen is guaranteed and where none of them has to depend on unspecified handouts to earn a living. Away from that, the federal government has declared October 2nd a public holiday to commemorate Nigeria's 63rd Independence Day. The Minister of Interior, Dr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, made this known in a statement signed by the ministry's permanent secretary, Dr. Oluwatoyin Akinlade, in Abuja. Dr. Olubunmi acknowledged the global socio-economic hardship, noting that Nigeria is not excluded. He, however, reasserted the government's commitment to tackling the issues facing the country to reassure Nigerians. In the meantime, the National Economic Council (NEC) has urged organized labor to reconsider its decision to embark on a nationwide strike on October 3, 2023. Addressing State House correspondents after its 136th meeting, the Plateau State Governor, Caleb Mafuang, said the council looked at the implications of the strike for the economy and the nation and thus urged members to continue to engage with the leaderships of the respective states and to appeal to them to shield the action and continue to path the way of dialogue with the federal government. On the foreign scene, Sweden's Prime Minister has summoned the head of the armed forces to help curb a surge in gang killings. The two men and the country's police chief will today meet to discuss what the role of the military could play. It comes after 12 hours, which saw two men shot dead in Stockholm and a 25-year-old woman killed in a blast at home in a town north of the capital. And finally, in sports, Liverpool owners Fenway Sports Group FSG have agreed to sell a minority stake in the club worth between £82 million and £164 million to global sports investment firm Dynasty Equity. The deals end the search for a new investment by FSG, who wanted to retain majority ownership of the Reds. Now the new investment will primarily be used to pay off the club's bank debt. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Channel where we have Francis on standby. To have a wonderful weekend.
Government, Secretary General, distinguished delegates.
This was the Lagos Nigeria for Spectrum TV to recover for the lapses in still counting.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by Muslim. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on Channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Of course, this is Rise and Shine. It's Friday edition, and we're always excited to be here taking you round happenings in Nigeria, of course, Akwa Ibom State inclusive. Today on Talking Nigeria, we started off with the activities and advancement of the Nigerian military, who have spoken about over 388 million stolen crude oil being recovered, and of course 22 arrests being made. They've also talked about hundreds of insurgent members, those who have been arrested, those who have surrendered within the course of the last 1 week. Different theaters of operation across the Nigerian military, across this country, have been able to advance that. Of course, Nigerians commend the efforts of the armed forces, while also seeking more deliberate onslaughts against these non-state actors who have consistently perpetrated harm on the livelihood of Nigerians. We also move to the comment made by the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. Nigerians, their sufferings will not be in vain, as Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, will fulfill his campaign promises and turn the narrative around. Of course, he made the comment as part of an event, as part of activities to celebrate Nigeria's 63rd anniversary. We also touched down in Edo State, where the Edo State Governor Obaseki has accepted his deputy's governor's open apology that was made about a week and a day ago, about approximately 8 days ago, precisely the 21st of this month. Of course, he said, as a Christian and in the interest of the Edo people, he's accepted the apology and hopes to move forward as they both work together to finish strong with just 1 year left. On the issue of the strike, we see that the AGF has tasked organized labor to respect the court order. This is as the joint union, NLC and TUC, have already announced a planned strike action for the month of October, precisely on October 3rd. Also, we touched light on Akwa Ibom, where the tribunal has quashed APC petition against the Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Umoino, and the fact that Atiku Abubakar is asking the court to overrule the objection by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu as far as the release of his academic records is concerned. And of course, all of these conversations we've had on Talking Nigeria, you can catch up on our socials, Spectrum TV, online or live, to be part of it. But of course, this morning, there are very serious questions. We see that apart from the AGF tasking the organized labor not to go on strike, but to look at court order, we see that the National Economic Council is begging the Nigerian Labour Congress and the TUC to shelve the planned nationwide strike. Now, I know that we all have been following the development between the NLC, the TUC, the federal government, and all the issues surrounding the fuel subsidy and the provision of palliative for Nigerians to cushion the hardship that has been brought about by the announcement of Ahmed Bola Tinubu on the ending of fuel subsidy. I'd like to get to hear your thoughts. The phone numbers are already on your screen. As soon as you begin to call for your contributions, we'll be taking that call. Right now, I'd like to hear what you feel. Should the NLC, TUC, and all other unions and trade organizations that have already declared their support for the planned nationwide strike starting October 3rd, shelve the planned industrial action? Or should they go ahead? Which of these do you think is going to be in the overall interest of Nigeria? Don't forget that the economy is biting hard. And of course, in as much as the NLC have asked Nigerians to stock up, how many Nigerians will have the money to stock up foodstuff long enough? For we don't know how long this strike is going to last in the event that it actually kick-started. Many people have said it is better for us to prevent it than to allow it start and not know when it's going to end. Recall the last strike that we had from ASU, it lasted for 8 months plus, and students had to stay in their homes for that long. Of course, we cannot say how much damage was caused to the educational system, the extension of years for students, the extension of funding and spending and expenditure on the part of parents. All of these are issues we need to look into and take into consideration while making a contribution. The phone numbers are already on your screen, and I'd like to hear from you. But right about now, we are heading to a daily spotlight where we'll be taking you round the front pages of a national dailies. Of course, on Delhi Spotlight this morning, we are starting with the very first paper, being the Punch newspaper. On the front page of Punch this morning, the kicker there says, indefinite strike. Labour protests as federal government threatens union leaders with contempt charge. The writer there says, threats won't deter us. We are no cowards, says TUC Vice President. We also see governors ask NLC to shelve strike. AGF says strike will be contempt of court. That story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Of course, the academic record, Tiku X court to overrule Tinubu's objection. Page 30 of Punch has that story. Telescope plan different tariffs for calls, data in states. That's on page 21. CBN will spend $3 billion loan to stabilize the economy. That's according to NEC. Page 27 has that story. Still on the front page of Punch newspaper this morning, federal government targets wealthy Nigerians in new tax drive. Page 27 has that story. We also see Umuai locks out workers, protesters cite hardship for lateness. That story is on page 29 of the Punch newspaper. Of course, Ogun APC, PDP, confident this tribunal rolls Saturday. Page 8 has that story. Oshun accident, 5 Lautech students, driver burned to death. That story is on page 4 and 5. What a tragedy there. Of course, those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. Our next stop on Delhi Spotlight is the Nigerian Tribune. On the front page of the Nigerian Tribune today, Friday, September 29th, we have the kicker there saying, NUPENG mobilizes members for October 3rd strike. No agreement with FG to suspend strike. NLC, respect court order. Don't embark on strike. AGF urges NLC. That story is on page 3 and page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. Of course, still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, we have Kaduna Tribunal dismisses PDP's petition. I won, going on appeal, PDP candidate, judgment, clarification of mandate given to me. That's Governor Sani. The story is on page 29 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. Military destroys 34 illegal refining sites. Arrest 59 suspect. Page 27 has that story. Abiodun Adebutu known fate tomorrow as tribunal delivers judgment. Page 12 has the story, and page 26 has 3 Lautech students die in lone accident in Oshun, 5 hospitalized. Still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, we see NEC warns states to carry out energy audit to determine needs. Begs Labour not to embark on strike, says excess crude account now $473.7 million. That story is on page 25 of the Nigerian Tribune. Of course, and the last story we'll look at before we leave the Nigerian Tribune, Obaseki accepts Shaibu's apology, page 23. And Aindatiwa, APC National Working Committee sets up 9-man committee, move to forestall impeachment. That story is on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune. And those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And that takes us to the next paper this morning, and that would be the Daily Trust newspaper. On the front page of Daily Trust this morning, we see Kaduna Tribunal upholds Obasani's election on technical ground. And the writer says election inconclusive, orders rerun in 4 local government areas considering merit. Will appeal, Ashiru. And of course, it affirms mandate given to me, Governor Sani. That story is on page 4 of Daily Trust. How banditry raises food price in Zamfara. Page 4 has that story. You cannot deliver Tinubu in 2027. Kwankwaso slams Ganduje. That story is on page 5. We're already talking about re-election and extension of tenure by 2027. Well, we should finish for the first 4 years first before we look into that. Kwankwaso, don't you think so? Well, of course. Moving on the front page of Daily Trust this morning, UN slams France for barring its Olympic athletes from wearing hijab. That's on page 27 of Daily Trust. Autopsy shows late Halima's eye not have vested, Gombe Hospital. Okay, that story is on page 5. Still on the front page of Daily Trust this morning, coups. Africa need to rejig its democracy. Jonathan, that story is on page 10. Still on the front page of Daily Trust, federal government steps into Siemens Napoli adversity. Page 31 has that story. NEC begs Labour to shelve planned strike. Dialogue at state level. That story is on page 3. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of Daily Trust this morning. And of course, you can mostly read it up. The next stop this morning on a Daily Spotlight is the front page of the Nation newspaper. Now, the kicker on the front page of the Nation says, government to TUC, NLC, respect court order barring strike. The writer says AGF rights unions, Falana, DSS, IGNSA. Of course, it's judicial terrorism, breach of rights, says Labour. That story is on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Still on the front page of the Nation, you find tribunal dismisses PDP's petition in Kaduna poll. Governor, my election upheld, Ashiru to appeal case. That story is on page 5. Obasiki, I forgive Shaibu's aberrant behavior. Page 6 has that story, and the writer under that story says governor cautions deputy. Of course, still on the front page of the Nation, we see how Southeast can overcome insecurity by governors, leaders, unity, economic growth critical. That story is on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Financial reforms ready for unveiling, says Carter. So that story is on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Independence, why Nigerians should collaborate with federal government by the Vice President Kashim Shettima. And that story is still on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. And those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Nation. And the last, before we take leave, sit tight leadership. Breed coups in Africa, says Dawn at Jonathan's lecture. Those are the major stories on the front page of the Nation this morning. And next stop is the front page of Daily Times. And on Daily Times, the writer there, the kicker there rather, says NLC will call off proposed indefinite strike if official. Scoffs at president's plan, 1st October speech if it doesn't address issues. Nupeng, bank workers in massive mobilization. Give Tinubu more time, NEC. That story is on page 4 of Daily Times this morning. Customs rake in 686 billion naira revenue July-August. AG Comptroller General. Of course, moving away from that, okay, those are the major stories we have on the front page of Daily Times this morning. And that takes us to our very last paper for today, and that would be the Vanguard newspaper. On the front page of the Vanguard, the kicker that says why you can't go on strike. Federal government tells NLC TUC the riders are coming in the numbers. Says strike will be violation of subsisting court order. NEC appeals to Labour to suspend planned strike, urges patience. Asks FG Labour to continue negotiations at state level. We have no agreement with FG to suspend strike. NLC says no scheduled meeting with federal government. Nupeng directs tanker drivers, petrol station attendants, orders to comply with October 3rd strike. Civil society organizations, rights activists set to enforce sit at home. Of course, describe petrol subsidy removal as self-serving policy of economic slavery. Okay. Those are the stories on the front page of Vanguard, and that story can be found on page 5. Still on the front page of Vanguard, Economic and Security Summit, Southeast governors, leaders resolve to end insecurity. That story is on page 11. INEC laments as 241,715 Bayelsa Kogi Imo voters shun PVCs. That's on page 9. Burkina Faso detains 4 officers after failed coup. Page 8 has the story. Of course, Still on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, to err is human, to forgive divine, says Obaseki as he accepts Shaibu's apology. Page 12 has the story. Tribunal, not unused, warn against interference in Kano politics. Of course, that is on page 9, and page 9 still also have the story. 63rd Independence Anniversary, federal government declares Monday, October 2, public holiday. Still on page 20 of the Vanguard newspaper, Independence Lecture, your sacrifices won't be in vain, Shatima tells Nigerians. Of course, on the front page still we have inflation. Manufacturers on sold goods up 45.4% to 272 billion naira. That story is on page 19. Of course, just before we leave, Mobat, I had no hand in Singer's death. That's from Naira Marley. That story is on page 6. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Of course, when you look at all of that stories that have been shared this morning, majority of the story focus on the issue between the federal government, the NLC, and the TUC. All of that are things you definitely would have to comment on. And like I said earlier, it's all up for us to join the conversation this morning to make contributions. I'd like to hear from you. Do you think the NLC, the TUC, should shelve its planned strike? Don't forget that all across, there have been massive mobilization across different subsectors of the Nigerian economy, just like we've seen in the headlines. We've seen different, agencies, different organizations already mobilizing in that regards. We just take a short pause, and when we come back, the phone lines will be open, as I'll be hoping to hear from you and what you feel about the different things. Of course, we'll be looking at some of the major recurring stories on the front pages of our national dailies. Stay with us.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421, and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Glad to welcome you back. Still Rise and Shine, coming to you live on Spectrum TV. Of course, the question is, do you agree that NLC, TUC should shelve the planned strike, or should they go ahead with the planned strike? Of course, you're looking at the different indices, the possible harm this would do to the Nigeria's economy, the hardship it will bring on Nigerians. You're not also forgetting the fact that once the strike starts, we do not have control as to when it's going to end. And looking at the economic reality, is it even in the interest of Nigerians, first and foremost the Nigerian populace, and then secondly the Nigerian government, for us to embark on a strike? But also look at the part that the federal government seems to not be committed and serious in its resolve to put an end to the different challenges caused by the removal of fuel subsidy. The phone numbers are on your screen, and I'll be delighted to hear from you. But of course, looking at the front pages of the national dailies this morning, I recall that a lot of stories, made it to the front page, but the labor issue between the federal government and the strike has been dominating the major pages of the national dailies this morning. We saw it on the front page of Punch. We saw on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, NUPENG mobilizing members for the October, 3rd strike. We saw still on the front page of the Nation newspaper, also carrying government to TUC, NLC, respect court orders, barring strike. Still on the front page, we saw in Daily Times the same issue being repeated there. Vanguard, I think of the 6 the national dailies we've taken this morning, is just about one that didn't feature the NLC issue. Another issue has been the comment by, Vice President Kashim Shettima. Okay, I'm going to know that a caller's just coming. Good morning, welcome to Rise and Shine. Hello, good morning. Okay, maybe we'll have to try and confirm the audio of the caller there before we let that call come through once again. But I'd like to get to hear from you within the few minutes that we have. Good morning. Welcome to Rise and Shine.
Hello. Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you? Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, my name is Ismail Ndakaka. I'm calling from Lagos State.
Welcome, Ismail. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I first and foremost have to commend your station. The production the programs and everything is excellent. And I have to applaud you.
Thank you.
And you particularly, I like your outfit.
Now I'm flattered. Thank you, Ismail.
You are looking handsome this morning. And I like your tie. I like everything you put on this morning and you fix it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sure you're as handsome as I am.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we go to the main issue we are talking about, the topic or the theme of the day. The labor, TUC, whatever strike. Well, my fear is what will be the outcome of this strike? In fact, first and foremost, what are they putting forward? What are they demanding from? What are the specifics that they are demanding from the federal government? You see, because I've been following up, I have not actually seen what they want, what particular thing, or they want from federal government. That okay, until we get this, so that we know where we are going. Is it to bring back subsidy? Is it to get palliative of 1 cup of rice or salt or whatever? Or is it to get buses to run the roads? What are they talking about? What do they want? Or to increase their salary? You see, the thing is, those of us who are not working with government, like you, if federal government today, wake up and say, we are adding XYZ to salaries, how does that affect other people who are not in government circle? All right? Mm-hmm. Or are they going to say, if federal government add 1 or 2 things to their salary and decide to give us palliative of 1 cup of rice, that ends the whole thing? Then after making us to stay at home and suffer, untold hardship for only God knows how long this strike is, because we've experienced it before. There was a time in this country where when we went for 2 weeks, strike, some of which we never, got anything tangible that Nigerians will feel relief of the hardship we are going through. The truth of the matter is this subsidy. What is government? What are they putting on bringing to the table before the government? Because we know the government is not doing it well. Fine. They are not doing the right thing. Because let me tell you, I have thought about this issue of the avalanche of Nigerians traveling abroad. What is the reason? It's not because we don't find something to do at all in Nigeria, or if we don't have something to do. Why? The thing is, the dollar is strong, Naira is weak. So if you are in America and you are working, maybe you are being paid 4,000 to 5,000 Naira, you bring it back to Nigeria, you become a millionaire. If today, now can Nigeria work here in Nigeria and be paid 5,000 Naira? The answer is no. But if we could be paid 5,000, we find out that people would not even want to travel. Yes, if we are receiving 5,000 Naira, that is equivalent or something appropriate to $9 dollar, what would be the reason for us to travel? I just want to paint a scenario. Okay? So the thing is, what are we doing? Each time we add something or, to pump price of petrol, you find out that there's this, in fact, headed, a push in prices of commodities in Nigeria and goods and services and everything. Why do we continue to do the same thing year in year? I'm 50-something, I'm almost 60 years old. They are doing the same thing. When we were growing up, it was 30, I think it was 15, from 10 kobo to 15 kobo to 20 kobo to 30 kobo, and then 1 Naira and all that. And we've been pushing the goalpost over the years. When petrol was being sold within that neighborhood, that 30 or kobos, as it were, Naira was very strong. Life was a bit better. Even that time, we were thinking that life will get better. Today, we will be hoping life will get better. When is it going to get better? So that is the truth. Now, they are saying that the border is for us, we are subsidizing for other countries. This is the lies we have been told over the years. Yes, that is the lies. Why? Who are manning the border? I don't know Nigerians. Yes, I don't know Nigerians. So if we are ready to make
look into the issue of the dollar-naira disparity.
Look into the issue of the dollar-naira disparity. Yes. Yeah, that is the issue. If if we are addressing this refinery thing, this refined product, it seems that is what determines our economy, so to speak. Because each time anything is added to pump price, you find out that every other aspect of our lives is affected and negatively affected.
All right. I'm sorry we have to let you go at this point, but thank you so much for being part of the conversation this morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Of course, a very valid concern raised there by a concerned Nigerian. If we are able to open the border, normalize the exchange rate between the dollar and the naira, maybe we'll begin to see a lot of changes. I mean, as we speak, the dollar to a naira is almost 1,000 naira as the last time we checked the FX market. But we do hope the federal government is able to change the narrative, especially as Nigerians are eagerly waiting for President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's speech for the 63rd anniversary, which some quarters believe will bring about calm and will stop the NLC and TUC from embarking on the nationwide strike. But this is where we're going to draw it up on today's edition of Rise and Shine. I sincerely appreciate you coming on. And of course, to the caller and all those who've called in, I appreciate you. Let's do this again next week. Of course, that will be the Independence edition on Monday, as we will be looking at Nigeria's 63rd anniversary and issues surrounding it. My name is Francis Oyemadet, wishing you a lovely weekend. It's the last weekend for the month of September, so happy new month in advance and happy Independence anniversary to Nigeria. Let's continue to pray for our country and our states and our leaders, and most importantly, contribute our own individual collective responsibility to the growth and advancement of our state, our community, our families, and our country. Have a lovely weekend.